You have been lied to about creativity. Somewhere along the way, someone told you that ideas come from inspiration, that creative people are born different, that you either have it or you do not, that the best you can do is wait, hope, and maybe one day the muse will visit. This is a lie that has cost you promotions, opportunities, and countless hours staring at blank screens waiting for something that was never going to arrive on its own. Here is the truth. Creativity is not a gift. It is a system. The people you admire, the ones who always seem to have the breakthrough idea in meetings, who ship constantly, who never seem stuck, they are not more talented than you. They have methods. Repeatable, learnable, transferable methods that turn stuckness into momentum on demand. This audiobook gives you those methods. In the next 2 hours, you will install a complete creative operating system. 10 methods organized into 4 phases. By the time you finish, you will not hope for ideas. You will generate them. Under pressure, on deadlines, in real life. Let me show you how the system works. Phase 1 is Spark. Spark tools break you out of mental loops and generate raw creative material. When every idea feels like a variation of the same thing, when you are stuck repeating patterns, when your brain keeps returning to the same territory, Spark tools force new pathways. You will learn 3 first principles thinking, lateral thinking, and analogical thinking. Phase 2 is Structure. Structure tools take raw ideas and develop them systematically. They help you transform, expand, and evaluate concepts from multiple angles. You will learn 3 Scamper, mind mapping, and 6 thinking hats. Phase 3 is Select. Select tools filter many options to the best few. They help you balance quantity with quality and expose hidden assumptions that limit your choices. You will learn 2 Diverge then Converge, and reverse assumptions. Phase 4 is Ship. Ship tools move ideas from your head into the real world. They turn limitations into leverage and replace overthinking with action. You will learn 2 Constraints as fuel and rapid prototyping. Spark, Structure, Select, Ship. For phases, 10 methods. 1 operating system you will use for the rest of your career. Each chapter follows the same structure. You will learn what the method does and when to use it. You will get a 3-minute exercise you can apply immediately. You will see real-world examples from business, marketing, product development, and content strategy. You will discover the common trap that stops most people and how to avoid it. And you will leave each chapter with a 1-page output, a tangible deliverable you can produce in minutes. This audiobook is not theory. It is a toolkit. By the end, you will have generated ideas, tested assumptions, and built at least 1 prototype. You will not just understand creative thinking. You will have done it. One more thing before we begin. The goal of this audiobook is not just to teach you methods. It is to change how you see yourself. Right now, you might describe yourself as someone who struggles with ideas, who freezes under pressure, who waits for inspiration. By the final chapter, you will describe yourself differently. You will say, I do not wait for inspiration. I generate ideas with a system. That transformation starts now. Chapter 1 begins with the most foundational method in the entire system. The tool that strips any problem down to its undeniable truths and rebuilds solutions from scratch. It is called First Principles Thinking. Let us begin. Chapter 1. First Principles Thinking, the Foundation. 91% of professionals say they need to be more creative at work. But here is the part nobody talks about. Only 3% actually have a system for generating ideas. The other 88%, they sit in meetings, stare at blank screens, and wait. They wait for inspiration. They wait for the perfect idea. They wait for someone else to speak first. And while they wait, deadlines pass. Promotions go to others. Opportunities disappear. You open this audiobook. That decision separates you from the 88%. Because in the next 2 hours, you are going to install something they do not have. A repeatable operating system for creative thinking. 10 methods. For phases. 1 transformation. By the time you finish, you will not hope for ideas. You will generate them. On demand. Under pressure. Starting today, this is chapter 1. And we begin with the most powerful method in the entire system. First Principles Thinking. Let me set the scene. It is 9:47 on a Tuesday morning. You are sitting in a conference room. Your manager just asked a question that made your stomach drop. She said, "We have tried everything. What else can we do?" The room went silent. 12 people, 12 blank faces, including yours. Your brain is scanning for something, anything, to say, but all you find are recycled ideas. The same suggestions everyone has already heard. The same approaches that already failed. This is the moment most people freeze. But after this chapter, you will not be most people. First principles thinking is your escape hatch from recycled thinking. It is a spark tool in your creative operating system, which means its job is to break you out of mental loops and force new connections. When you are stuck repeating the same ideas, when every solution feels like a variation of something that already failed, when your brain keeps circling the same territory, this is the method you reach for. Here is what first principles thinking actually does. It strips a problem down to its undeniable truths, the facts that cannot be argued, and then rebuilds solutions from scratch. Instead of asking, "How do we improve what exists?" you ask, "What is actually true here, and what can we build from those truths?" The quotable rule is this: stop copying. Start reconstructing. Let me show you why this matters with a story you probably know, but from an angle you have not considered. In 2002, Elon Musk wanted to buy rockets for SpaceX. The market price? $65 million per rocket. The standard approach would be to negotiate, find discounts, maybe buy used. That is what everyone else did. That is analogical thinking. Looking at what exists and trying to optimize it. Musk did something different. He asked the first principles question, what is a rocket actually made of? The answer? Aluminum alloys, titanium, copper, carbon fiber. He priced the raw materials. The total? Roughly 2% of the retail price. 2%. $65 million of rocket was 98% markup, middlemen, and that is how it has always been done. So SpaceX built their own rockets. From first principles. Today, they launch at a fraction of the industry cost and have revolutionized space travel. Now, you might be thinking, that is Elon Musk. I am not building rockets. Fair. So let me bring this into your world. A product manager at a SaaS company was asked to reduce customer churn. The team had tried everything. Better onboarding emails, more support articles, discount offers for at-risk accounts. Nothing moved the needle. In the weekly meeting, someone suggested hiring more customer success managers. Another suggested a loyalty program. Same category of thinking. Slight variations on existing approaches. The product manager used first principles. She asked, what is actually true about customers who leave? She pulled the data. 73% of churned customers had not logged in for 14 days before canceling. That was the fact, the undeniable truth. Then she asked, what assumptions are we making? The team assumed customers needed more information, more emails, more support. But the data said something else. Customers were not confused. They were disengaged. They had stopped using the product entirely. So instead of more communication, she built a friction interrupt feature. If a user had not logged in for 7 days, the product sent a single, personalized notification tied to their most used feature. Not "we miss you," not a discount. Just, your weekly report is ready. One insight you might have missed. Re-engagement jumped 31%. Churn dropped. The solution was simple, but it required breaking the assumption that more communication equals better retention. This is the power of first principles. It does not give you a slightly better version of what exists. It gives you a fundamentally different approach. Now here is where most people go wrong. The common trap with first principles thinking is treating it like a philosophy instead of a process. People hear the concept, nod their heads, and then continue thinking exactly as they did before. They say, I should think from first principles, but they never actually do the work of identifying facts versus assumptions. The method only works when you write things down. When you force yourself to separate what you know to be true from what you believe to be true. Those are different categories, and your brain will blur them together unless you put pen to paper. So here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this right now, or pause this audiobook and do it within the next hour. Think of a problem you are currently stuck on. Write it down in one sentence. Now, underneath it, draw a line down the middle of the page. On the left side, write facts. On the right side, write assumptions. Fill both columns. Facts are things you can prove with data, evidence, or direct observation. Assumptions are things you believe but cannot verify. Most people discover that their facts column is shorter than they expected, and their assumptions column is running the show. Now, pick one assumption. Flip it. Ask, what if the opposite were true? Generate 3 ideas based on that reversal. That is first principles in 3 minutes. Identify the facts. Expose the assumptions. Rebuild from truth. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast here. Average thinkers ask, what have others done? They look for case studies, best practices, templates. They optimize within existing frameworks. This feels safe. It also guarantees you will never produce a breakthrough idea. You will only produce variations. Elite thinkers ask, what is actually true? They deconstruct before they create. They question the question. When Stanford's D. School studied high-performing innovation teams, they found that the top 15% spent 40% more time on problem framing than average teams. They did not rush to solutions. They made sure they were solving the right problem first. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers accept constraints as fixed. We only have this budget. We only have this timeline. This is how our industry works. They treat limitations as walls. Elite thinkers test constraints for validity. Is this budget fixed, or is that an assumption? Is this timeline real, or is it inherited from a previous project? Research from MIT Sloan found that 63% of organizational constraints are assumed, not verified. More than half of the walls you see are not actually there. Let me give you your one-page output for this chapter. This is what you should be able to produce after learning first principles thinking. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. State your problem in 1 sentence. Bullet 2. List 3 to 5 undeniable facts about this problem. Bullet 3. List 3 to 5 assumptions you have been making. Bullet 4. Circle the assumption most likely to be wrong. Bullet 5. Write the opposite of that assumption. Bullet 6. Generate 3 solution ideas based on that reversal. Your mini table has 2 columns. Column 1, current approach. Column 2, first principles alternative. Fill in 1 row. Your decision. Which first principles idea will you test this week? That is your deliverable. You can complete it in 10 minutes, and you will have a fundamentally different angle on a problem that has been stuck. Now, remember where this fits in your operating system. First principles thinking is a Spark tool. Its job is to break you out of loops and generate raw material for new ideas. It is not about evaluating ideas or selecting the best one. That comes later. Right now, you are learning to create options that did not exist before. You now have method 1, the foundation, the ability to deconstruct any problem to its core truths and rebuild from there. But here is what first principles does not do. It does not help you transform an idea that already exists. It does not help you take something good and make it better, faster, or more original. For that, you need a different tool, a structured system for manipulating any concept through 7 different lenses. That tool is called Scamper. And in Chapter 2, you are going to learn how one product team used it to generate 47 variations of a single feature in under 30 minutes. The next method starts now. Chapter 2, Scamper, the Transformer. The most creative people in the world do not create from nothing. And the least creative people, they also do not create from nothing. The difference is not imagination. It is method. Here's what I mean. A study published in the Journal of Creative Behavior tracked 200 product designers over 18 months. The researchers wanted to know what separated breakthrough innovators from average performers. The answer surprised everyone. The top innovators did not have more original ideas. They had more variations. They took one concept and transformed it 7, 12, 20 different ways before selecting the best version. Average performers generated 1 or 2 versions and stopped. The raw material was often the same. The process was completely different. You just learned first principles thinking. That method helps you deconstruct problems and build new solutions from undeniable truths. But what happens when you already have an idea, a product, a strategy, a piece of content, something that exists but is not good enough yet? First principles will not help you there. You do not need to tear everything down. You need to transform what you have. That is where Scamper comes in. Let me paint the picture. It is 3:15 in the afternoon. You are staring at a pitch deck that needs to go out tomorrow. The core idea is solid. Your manager approved it last week. But something feels off. It is not memorable. It is not different. If a competitor saw this deck, they would not be worried. You have 45 minutes before your next meeting, and the creative well is dry. You have already revised this thing 4 times. Every change feels like rearranging furniture in a burning house. This is the moment Scamper was built for. Scamper is a structure tool in your creative operating system. Its job is to take any existing idea and systematically transform it through 7 different lenses. Not random brainstorming. Not hoping something better appears. A repeatable, mechanical process that forces your brain to see the same concept from angles it would never find on its own. The acronym stands for 7 transformation triggers: substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, reverse. The quotable rule is this: you do not need a new idea. You need a new angle on the idea you already have. Scamper was developed by advertising executive Alex Osborne in the 1950s and later refined by educator Bob Eberly. It has been used by companies from Procter & Gamble to Google to generate product variations, marketing angles, and strategic pivots. But its real power is speed. You can generate 10 to 15 variations of any concept in under 10 minutes once you know the framework. Let me walk you through each trigger with examples you can actually use. Substitute asks, what can I replace? What component, material, person, or process can be swapped for something else? McDonald's substituted beef with chicken and created the McChicken, which now generates over $2 billion annually. A content strategist substituted written blog posts with audio versions and tripled engagement among commuter audiences. Combine asks, what can I merge? What 2 elements, features, or ideas can be blended into something new? The smartphone combined a phone, camera, GPS, music player, and web browser into one device. A consulting firm combined their onboarding process with their sales process, letting prospects experience the methodology before signing a contract. Close rates increased 42%. Adapt asks, what can I borrow from elsewhere? What works in another industry, context, or domain that I can apply here? Southwest Airlines adapted the pit stop model from NASCAR racing to turn planes around faster between flights. A SaaS company adapted the freemium model from gaming apps and increased their user base by 300% in 1 year. Modify asks, what can I change in scale, shape, color, or form? What happens if I make it bigger, smaller, faster, slower, louder, or quieter? Twitter modified the standard blog post down to 140 characters and created an entirely new communication medium. A project manager modified her status meetings from 60 minutes to 15 and saw participation double because people actually showed up prepared. Put to another use asks, what else could this be used for? What other problems could this solution solve? Bubble wrap was originally invented as textured wallpaper. It failed. Then someone realized it was perfect for packaging fragile items. Resistance bands were designed for physical therapy, but became a fitness industry staple. Eliminate asks, what can I remove? What would happen if I deleted a feature, step, or component entirely? Google's homepage eliminated everything except the search bar and became the most visited website on Earth. A fintech startup eliminated the account creation step from their onboarding flow. Conversions increased 58%. Reverse asks, what if I flipped the order? What if I did the opposite of what is expected? Zappos reversed the standard e-commerce return policy, offering free returns with no questions asked. It seemed risky. It became their biggest competitive advantage. A product team reversed their feature launch sequence, releasing the premium version first and the basic version second. Premium adoption tripled compared to previous launches. Now here is the common trap. Most people hear about Scamper, try 1 or 2 triggers, get a mediocre idea, and quit. They treat it like a slot machine. Pull the lever, hope for a jackpot. That is not how Scamper works. The method works when you force yourself through all 7 triggers. even when the first few feel useless. The best ideas often come from the fifth, sixth, or seventh lens. Your brain needs to exhaust the obvious before it reaches the original. Research from the Kellogg School of Management found that ideation quality peaks around idea number 15 to 20 in a session. The first 10 are usually warm-up. You have to push past them. So here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this now or within the next hour. Pick one idea you are currently working on. Write it in the center of a page. Now, rapid fire. Generate one variation for each Scamper letter. Substitute, one idea. Combine, one idea. Adapt, one idea. Modify, one idea. Put to another use, one idea. Eliminate, one idea. Reverse, one idea. Do not judge. Do not edit. Just generate. You now have 7 new angles on something that felt stuck 5 minutes ago. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers generate options randomly. They brainstorm without structure, hoping something clicks. When it does not click fast, they give up and go with their first idea. First ideas are rarely best ideas. They are just first. Elite thinkers generate options systematically. They use frameworks like Scamper to force variation. Harvard Business Review analyzed decision-making at Fortune 500 companies and found that teams who generated at least 5 alternatives before deciding outperformed single-option teams by 23% in outcome quality. More options equals better decisions. Scamper guarantees more options. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers believe creativity is about inventing something entirely new. They pressure themselves to be original, which creates performance anxiety and blank page paralysis. Elite thinkers know that creativity is transformation, not invention. 93% of commercially successful innovations are combinations or modifications of existing ideas, according to research from Northwestern's Kellogg School. The iPhone was not invented from nothing. It combined existing technologies, touchscreens, mobile phones, MP3 players, and mobile internet. Apple's genius was integration, not invention. Your job is not to create from zero. Your job is to transform better than anyone else. Now, remember where Scamper fits in your operating system. It is a structure tool. Spark tools like first principles break you out of loops and generate raw material. Structure tools like Scamper take that raw material and expand it systematically. You have an idea. Now you need variations. That is Scamper's job. Here is your one-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. State the idea or concept you want to transform. Bullet 2. Write your best substitute variation. Bullet 3. Write your best combined variation. Bullet 4. Write your best eliminate variation. Bullet 5. Write your best reverse variation. Bullet 6. Circle the one variation that feels most promising. Your mini table has 2 columns. Column 1, original concept. Column 2, best Scamper variation. Fill in 1 row. Your decision, which variation will you develop further this week? That is your deliverable. 7 minutes of structured thinking. 1 transformed idea. You now have 2 methods. First principles to deconstruct and rebuild. Scamper to transform and multiply. You can break down stuck problems and expand existing ideas. But here is what neither method does. They do not help you explore the full territory of a concept. They do not help you see every connection, every branch, every related idea radiating from a central theme. For that, you need a tool that makes your thinking visible. A tool that turns one idea into an expanding network of possibilities. That tool is mind mapping. And in Chapter 3, you're going to learn how one marketing strategist used it to generate 84 content ideas in a single 12-minute session. The expansion starts now. Chapter 3, Mind Mapping, the Expander. Your brain does not think in lists. It never has. Neuroscientists at the University of Cambridge spent 3 years mapping how the human brain processes and retrieves information. Their finding contradicted how most of us were taught to organize ideas. The brain stores concepts in associative networks, not linear sequences. One idea connects to 5 others. Those 5 connect to 25 more. Memory, creativity, and problem-solving all depend on these branching pathways. But here's the problem. When most people try to capture ideas, they use lists, bullet points, numbered sequences, top to bottom, first to last. They force their naturally explosive, networked thinking into a narrow, single-lane highway. And then they wonder why brainstorming sessions feel so limited, why they run out of ideas after 3 or 4, why everything they generate sounds like a variation of the same thought. The tool was wrong, not the brain. Mind mapping is the method that matches how your brain actually works. It is the second structure tool in your creative operating system. While Scamper transforms a single idea through 7 lenses, mind mapping expands a single idea into dozens of branches, sub-branches, and unexpected connections. It makes your thinking visible. It shows you the full territory of a concept, not just the first path your brain happened to walk down. Let me put you in the moment. It is Monday morning. Your team lead just assigned you a content strategy for the next quarter. 12 weeks of blog posts, social campaigns, and email sequences around a single theme: customer retention. You have a meeting in 2 hours to present your initial ideas. Your instinct is to open a document and start typing a list. Idea 1, Idea 2, Idea 3. By Idea 4, you are already repeating yourself. By Idea 6, you are stuck. You check the clock. 90 minutes left. The list approach has failed you again. This is where mind mapping changes everything. Here is what mind mapping actually does. It starts with a central concept in the middle of a page and radiates outward with related ideas, questions, categories, and connections. Each branch spawns sub-branches. Each sub-branch spawns more. Instead of generating ideas in sequence, you generate them in parallel. You see the whole landscape at once. The quotable rule is this: think in branches, not bullets. The technique was popularized by British psychologist Tony Buzan in the 1970s, but its principles trace back to visual note-taking methods used by thinkers from Leonardo da Vinci to Charles Darwin. Modern research has validated its effectiveness. A study in the Journal of Educational Psychology found that students using mind maps retain 40% more information than those using traditional notes. Researchers at the University of Nottingham found that mind mapping increased idea generation by nearly 30% compared to linear brainstorming. Why does it work so well? Because the visual, spatial format activates both hemispheres of your brain simultaneously. The left hemisphere processes the words and logic. The right hemisphere processes the spatial relationships and patterns. When both sides work together, you access more cognitive resources. More resources means more ideas. Let me show you the method in action. A marketing strategist at a B2B software company was given the same challenge. Create a quarter of content around customer retention. Instead of a list, she grabbed a blank sheet of paper and wrote customer retention in the center. She drew a circle around it. Then she asked 6 questions, each becoming a main branch radiating from the center. Why do customers leave? How do we measure retention? Who are our best retained customers? What do competitors do? Where do we lose customers in the journey? When is retention most at risk? Each branch got its own sub-branches. Under why do customers leave, she wrote: poor onboarding, feature confusion, lack of perceived value, better competitor offer, budget cuts, internal champion leaves. 6 sub-branches. Each of those could branch further. Under poor onboarding, she added: first 7 days critical, email sequence gaps, no live demo option, help docs hard to find. In 12 minutes, she had 84 distinct nodes on her map, 84 potential content angles. Not from genius, not from waiting for inspiration, from a simple spatial structure that let her brain do what it does naturally: branch, connect, expand. When she walked into that meeting, she did not have a few ideas. She had a content ecosystem. Her team lead asked where all this came from. She said, "I stopped using lists." Now here is the common trap. Most people who try mind mapping make it too neat. They treat it like a presentation graphic. They worry about alignment, color coding, symmetry. They edit while they create. This kills the method. Mind mapping works because it is messy. The visual chaos is the point. When your branches cross, when your handwriting gets sloppy, when you run out of room and start writing sideways, that is when your brain is working fastest. The moment you start organizing, You shift from generative mode to evaluative mode. You stop creating and start judging. Those are different cognitive tasks. Do not mix them. First you map, then you clean. Here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this right now. Take a blank sheet of paper. Write one word in the center. It can be a project you are working on, a problem you are solving, or a topic you want to explore. Circle it. Now draw 6 branches radiating outward. Label each branch with a question word. Why? How? Who? What? Where? When? These are your category triggers. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Fill each branch with as many sub-ideas as you can. Do not stop to evaluate. Do not erase. Do not slow down. Quantity over quality. Speed over perfection. When the timer stops, count your notes. Most people hit 25 to 40 ideas in 3 minutes. That is more than most brainstorming sessions produce in 30. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers capture ideas in isolation. They write one idea, then try to think of another, then another. Each idea exists alone. There is no structure connecting them, no visual relationship showing how they relate. This makes it hard to see gaps and even harder to generate unexpected combinations. Elite thinkers capture ideas in systems. They use spatial tools like mind maps to see the full architecture of their thinking. A study from Stanford's design school found that teams using visual ideation methods identified 37% more solution pathways than teams using text-only methods. Seeing the structure reveals the gaps. Gaps become opportunities. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers brainstorm until they feel done. They stop when the ideas stop coming easily, usually around 5 to 10 ideas. They assume they have exhausted the territory. Elite thinkers brainstorm until they have covered the territory. Mind mapping makes coverage visible. You can see which branches have 20 sub-ideas and which have only 2. The sparse branches are signals. They tell you where to dig deeper. Research from the University of Oklahoma's Creativity Lab found that forcing expansion on underdeveloped branches increased breakthrough idea probability by 41%. The best ideas often hide in the places you almost skipped. Your job is not to brainstorm until you feel done. Your job is to brainstorm until the map is full. Now, remember where mind mapping fits in your operating system. It is a structure tool, like Scamper, but they do different jobs. Scamper transforms one idea through multiple lenses. Mind mapping expands one idea into multiple branches. Use Scamper when you have a concept and need variations. Use mind mapping when you have a theme and need territory. Together, these structure tools turn a single spark into a landscape of options. Here is your one-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. Write your central topic or challenge in 1 word or short phrase. Bullet 2. List your 6 main branches using question words. Why? How? Who? What? Where? When? Bullet 3. Identify which branch has the most sub-ideas. Bullet 4. Identify which branch has the fewest sub-ideas. Bullet 5. Force 5 more ideas onto your weakest branch. Bullet 6. Star the 3 most unexpected or promising nodes across the entire map. Your mini table has 2 columns. Column 1, branch category. Column 2, number of sub-ideas. Fill 1 row for each of your 6 branches. Your decision: which single branch will you develop into a full project, proposal, or piece of content this week? That is your deliverable. 12 minutes of structured expansion. 1 visible map of possibilities. You now have 3 methods. First, principles to deconstruct. Scamper to transform. Mind mapping to expand. You can break problems down to their core truths, multiply ideas through 7 lenses, and explore the full territory of any concept. But here is what all 3 methods have in common. They work within the boundaries of logical thinking. They follow patterns your brain expects. And sometimes, the most powerful ideas do not live on the logical path. They live in the unexpected detour, the strange connection, the answer that seems wrong until it suddenly seems obvious. For that, you need a different kind of tool. A tool that deliberately breaks your brain out of predictable patterns. A tool that forces lateral leaps instead of linear steps. That tool is lateral thinking. And in Chapter 4, you're going to learn a counterintuitive technique. How asking, "How could I make this worse?" generates better solutions than asking, "How could I make this better?" The pattern breaks now. Chapter 4, Lateral Thinking, the Pattern Breaker. You are about to lose the account. The client called an emergency meeting. 30 minutes from now. Your team has been pitching variations of the same strategy for 6 weeks. Each version was logical. Each version was rejected. Too predictable, they said. We have seen this before. Your manager just pulled you aside and said, "We need something different. Not better. Different. Or we are done." 28 minutes left. Your brain is doing what brains do under pressure. It is scanning for answers. But every answer it finds looks like a cousin of the ideas that already failed. You are not stuck because you lack creativity. You are stuck because your brain keeps walking the same logical path. It sees point A, and it automatically routes to point B. The route is efficient. The route is reasonable. The route is exactly where everyone else goes. This is the moment you need to break the pattern. Lateral thinking is your second spark tool. While first principles deconstructs problems down to core truths, lateral thinking escapes the gravitational pull of obvious solutions entirely. It forces your brain off the main road and into territory it would never explore voluntarily. It is not about thinking harder. It is about thinking sideways. The term was coined by psychologist Edward de Bono in 1967. De Bono spent decades studying how the brain processes information and discovered something crucial. The brain is a pattern-making machine. It takes inputs, matches them to existing patterns, and outputs predictable responses. This is efficient for survival. It is terrible for creativity. The brain's default is to find the most logical answer and stop searching. Lateral thinking intervenes before that stop. It deliberately disrupts the pattern matching process, forcing the brain to consider pathways it would normally ignore. The quotable rule is this: the obvious path is everyone's path. Leave it. Here is what makes lateral thinking different from other creative methods. Most ideation techniques help you generate more ideas within a logical framework. Lateral thinking helps you escape the framework entirely. It does not optimize. It provokes. Let me show you the most counterintuitive technique in this entire audiobook. Instead of asking, "How could I make this better?" ask, "How could I make this worse?" This sounds absurd. It works precisely because it is absurd. When you ask how to improve something, your brain activates its pattern matching system. It looks for solutions similar to past solutions. It filters for reasonableness. It plays it safe. But when you ask how to make something worse, you bypass that filter. You access ideas your brain would normally reject instantly. And hidden inside those bad ideas are often the seeds of breakthrough solutions. Here's the method. Take any problem. Generate 10 ways to make it worse. Be specific. Be ridiculous. Then take each worse idea and invert it. The inversion often reveals a solution you would never have found through direct thinking. A product team at a fintech startup was struggling with user activation. New users signed up, but never completed their first transaction. The team had tried better onboarding emails, simpler interfaces, tutorial videos. Nothing moved the needle significantly. In a lateral thinking session, the facilitator asked, "How could we make activation even worse? How could we guarantee that nobody ever completes a transaction?" The team laughed, then started listing. Make the sign-up form 50 fields long. Hide the transaction button on page 7. Require a blood sample for verification. Send users to a competitor's website after sign-up. Make the app only work between 3 and 4 a.m. One team member said, "Require users to complete a 20-step tutorial before they can do anything." The facilitator paused. Invert that. What is the opposite? The opposite. Require users to complete their first transaction before they can do anything else. Silence. Then someone said, "Wait. What if the first thing they see after sign-up is not a dashboard, not a tutorial, but an immediate prompt to make a $2 test transaction? No other options. No distractions. Just the action we want them to take." They tested it. First transaction completion rate jumped 63%. The solution was hiding inside a joke about making things worse. Direct thinking would never have found it. The brain's pattern filter would have rejected force users into a transaction immediately as too aggressive. But approached laterally, inverted from its opposite, it became obvious. This is the power of lateral thinking. It accesses ideas your logical brain rejects automatically. Now here is the common trap. People try lateral thinking once, feel uncomfortable, and quit. The discomfort is the point. Lateral thinking is supposed to feel strange. You are asking your brain to ignore its most trusted instincts. You are deliberately walking away from the answer that feels right. This creates cognitive friction. Most people interpret friction as a signal to stop. Wrong. The friction means it is working. De Bono compared it to digging holes. Vertical thinking digs the same hole deeper. If the hole is in the wrong place, digging deeper does not help. Lateral thinking stops digging, walks to a different spot, and starts a new hole. The discomfort you feel is the sensation of walking away from a hole you have already invested in. Push through it. Here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this right now. Identify a problem you are currently facing. Write it down. Now list 10 ways to make that problem worse. Be extreme. Be absurd. The more ridiculous, the better. Once you have 10, pick the 3 that made you laugh or cringe the most. Invert each one. Write the exact opposite. These 3 inversions are your lateral solutions. At least one will surprise you. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers trust their first instinct. They find the logical answer and commit. This feels efficient. It also guarantees they will arrive at the same destination as everyone else who faced a similar problem. First instincts are pattern matches. Pattern matches are by definition not original. Elite thinkers distrust their first instinct. They treat the obvious answer as a starting point, not a conclusion. Research from the Wharton School found that entrepreneurs who deliberately delayed committing to their first solution generated 42% more viable alternatives. The delay was not procrastination. It was strategic skepticism. They knew the first answer was rarely the best answer. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers avoid absurdity. They self-censor ideas that seem impractical, unrealistic, or silly. They want to appear reasonable. This filter kills lateral solutions before they surface. The absurd idea that gets dismissed often contains a principle that could transform everything. Elite thinkers cultivate absurdity. Pixar's creative process includes a practice called plussing, where team members are required to build on ideas rather than reject them, even ideas that seem ridiculous. Some of their most successful story elements came from ideas that initially sounded impossible. IDEO, the design firm behind Apple's first mouse, runs deep dive brainstorming sessions where the first rule is to encourage wild ideas. The wilder, the better. They know that filtering comes later. Generation must be unfiltered. Your job is not to be reasonable during ideation. Your job is to be prolific. Reasonableness is for selection, not generation. Now, let me give you another lateral thinking technique. It is called random entry. Pick a random word. Any word. Open a dictionary, point at a page, and select a noun. Now force a connection between that random word and your problem. This sounds arbitrary because it is arbitrary. That is the point. The random word pulls your brain off its default track. It forces association pathways that would never activate naturally. A team trying to improve hospital patient satisfaction once drew the random word banana. They forced connections. Bananas come in bunches. What if patient care came in bunches? Clusters of services instead of isolated treatments? Bananas have peels that protect them. What if patients had a protective layer? A dedicated patient advocate for their entire stay? That random word exercise led to a patient advocate program that increased satisfaction scores by 27%. The connection between bananas and hospitals does not exist logically. You have to force it. The forcing is the creative act. Here is where lateral thinking fits in your operating system. It is a spark tool. Its job is to break patterns and generate raw creative material that your logical brain would never produce on its own. It is not about evaluating or selecting. It is about escaping the obvious and finding what hides beyond it. Use lateral thinking when you feel stuck in a loop. When every idea sounds like a variation of the same thing. When your brain keeps returning to the same answer no matter how many times you try to think of something new. That is pattern lock. Lateral thinking is the key. Here is your one-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. State the problem you want to solve laterally. Bullet 2. List 3 ways to make this problem dramatically worse. Bullet 3. Invert each worse idea into a potential solution. Bullet 4. Pick 1 random word and force 3 connections to your problem. Bullet 5. Combine your most interesting inversion with your most interesting random connection. Bullet 6. Write 1 sentence describing the solution this combination suggests. Your mini table has 2 columns. Column 1. Worse idea. Column 2. Inverted solution. Fill 3 rows. Your decision. Which lateral solution will you prototype or test this week? That is your deliverable. 10 minutes of deliberate pattern breaking. 1 idea nobody else will have. You now have 4 methods. First, principles to deconstruct. Scamper to transform. Mind mapping to expand. Lateral thinking to escape. You can break problems down, multiply ideas, map territories, and leap past the obvious. But here is something none of these methods address. What happens when you have too few resources? Too little time? Too small a budget? Most people see constraints as creativity killers. They wait until conditions are ideal. They ask for more. They delay. Elite performers see constraints differently. They do not work despite limitations. They work because of them. The next method is called constraints as fuel. And in Chapter 5, you are going to learn why a team with 90% less budget outperformed their fully funded competitors, and how you can use the same principles starting today. Limitations become leverage now. Chapter 5. Constraints as fuel. The fuel. More resources do not create more creativity. Less does. This sounds backward. Everything you have been told suggests that creativity needs freedom. Open budgets. Unlimited time. No restrictions. Remove the obstacles and watch innovation flourish. It is a compelling story. It is also wrong. Researchers at the University of Amsterdam conducted a series of experiments on creative problem-solving under constraints. They gave participants the same challenges, but varied the limitations. Some groups had abundant resources and time. Other groups had strict boundaries. The results were consistent and surprising. The constrained groups outperformed the unconstrained groups by an average of 35% in originality and feasibility of solutions. More constraints. Better ideas. This is not a quirk. It is how the brain works. When everything is possible, the brain becomes paralyzed by optionality. It cannot prioritize. It cannot focus. It drifts toward the safe and familiar because there is no pressure to do otherwise. But when boundaries exist, the brain shifts into a different mode. It stops asking, "What could I do?" and starts asking, "What can I do with this?" That shift changes everything. This is Chapter 5, and the method you are about to learn will permanently change how you see limitations. Let me set the scene. It is Wednesday afternoon. You just got pulled into your manager's office. The project you pitched last month got approved, but there is a catch. The budget was cut by 60%. The timeline was compressed from 8 weeks to 3, and you lost 2 team members to a higher priority initiative. Your manager looks at you and says, "Can you still make this work?" Your stomach sinks. Every instinct says this is impossible. You need more. More money. More time. More people. Without them, the project is doomed. That instinct is lying to you. Constraints as fuel is a ship tool in your creative operating system. Ship tools are about action. They move you from thinking to doing, from planning to executing. While spark tools break patterns and structure tools organize ideas, ship tools get things out the door. Constraints as fuel does this by transforming limitations from obstacles into creative accelerants. The quotable rule is this: constraints do not block creativity. They direct it. Here is what actually happens when you face a limitation. Your brain receives a focusing signal. Instead of scanning infinite possibilities, it scans a defined space. This is cognitively easier. The defined space becomes a puzzle to solve rather than an open void to fill. Puzzles are engaging. Voids are overwhelming. Let me show you this principle in action. In 2008, Spotify was a startup with almost no marketing budget trying to compete against Apple iTunes. a company with essentially unlimited resources. The logical conclusion? Spotify should lose. They could not outspend Apple. They could not out-advertise them. They could not buy their way into consumer awareness. So they stopped trying. Instead of treating their budget constraint as a disadvantage, they treated it as a strategic filter. What could they do that Apple could not? Apple sold songs. Spotify could give them away with a freemium model. Apple required downloads. Spotify could stream instantly. Apple was a transaction. Spotify could become a relationship. Every strategic decision was shaped by the constraint. The constraint forced differentiation. 15 years later, Spotify has over 600 million users. The limitation did not kill them. It defined them. Now zoom into something closer to your daily work. A content marketing team at a mid-sized SaaS company was told to produce the same output with half the writing staff due to layoffs. The initial reaction was panic. Half the people meant half the content, which meant half the traffic, which meant missed targets. The team lead reframed the constraint. She asked, "What could we create that requires less writing but delivers equal or greater value?" The team brainstormed. They landed on a new format: data-driven visual reports. Instead of 2,000-word blog posts that took 8 hours to produce, they created single-page visual summaries of industry benchmarks that took 3 hours. The visual reports outperformed the long-form posts. Shares increased 40%. Time on page increased. Lead generation improved. The constraint forced a format innovation they would never have tried otherwise. This is the counterintuitive truth. Abundance breeds complacency. Scarcity breeds invention. Now here is the common trap. Most people treat constraints as temporary problems to solve. They spend their energy trying to remove the limitation instead of working within it. They negotiate for more budget. They push back on deadlines. They lobby for additional resources. Sometimes this works. Often it wastes time and energy that could be spent creating. Elite performers flip the script. They accept constraints immediately and redirect all energy toward creative solutions. They do not ask, "How do I get more?" They ask, "What becomes possible because of this limitation?" Research from Harvard Business School examined product development teams across 47 companies. Teams that embraced constraints early in the process delivered projects 28% faster and rated their solutions as more innovative than teams that resisted constraints. Acceptance accelerated creativity. Resistance delayed it. The constraint is not your enemy. Your resistance to it is. Here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this right now. Think of a current project or goal. Write down 3 constraints you are facing. Be specific. Maybe it is a budget number, a deadline, a missing skill, a limited tool. Now, for each constraint, generate 3 ideas that only work because of that constraint. Not ideas that work despite the limitation. Ideas that leverage the limitation. For example, if your constraint is no budget for paid advertising, your leverage ideas might be: create a referral program that rewards existing customers, build a free tool that attracts organic traffic, partner with complementary brands for cross-promotion. These ideas exist because the constraint exists. 9 ideas, 3 minutes, each one born from limitation. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers see constraints as problems. They categorize limitations as negative. They believe that better conditions would produce better work. So they wait. They complain. They make excuses. And while they wait for ideal conditions that never arrive, time passes and nothing ships. Elite thinkers see constraints as filters. Every limitation removes options. Fewer options means faster decisions. Faster decisions means more iterations. More iterations means better outcomes. A study from the University of Illinois found that creative professionals who self-imposed artificial constraints, like design this in only 3 colors or write this in under 500 words, produced work rated as more creative by independent judges than professionals given no constraints. The limitation was the catalyst. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers add resources to solve problems. When something is not working, they assume they need more. More people, more money, more time. This approach scales cost without guaranteeing results. Elite thinkers subtract to solve problems. They ask what can be removed, simplified, or eliminated. Twitter's 140-character limit forced users to distill thoughts to their essence and created a new form of communication. Basecamp built a multi-million-dollar project management company with a team that never exceeded 60 people by constantly asking, "What can we not do?" Subtraction creates focus. Focus creates quality. Your job is not to acquire more resources. Your job is to extract more value from the resources you have. Now, let me give you a specific technique for applying this method. It is called the constraint flip. Take any constraint you are facing. Write it as a negative statement. I only have 2 weeks. Now flip it to a forcing function. Because I only have 2 weeks, I must prioritize ruthlessly. Then flip it to an advantage. Because I must prioritize ruthlessly, I will ship only the essential features, which means a cleaner product. Negative to forcing function to advantage. 3 flips. The same constraint. Completely different energy. A startup founder used this technique when investors rejected her funding round. The constraint. No external capital for the next 12 months. The flip. Because she had no external capital, she had to generate revenue immediately. The advantage. Because she had to generate revenue immediately, she built a product customers would actually pay for instead of a product that looked good in pitch decks. 18 months later, she was profitable without ever taking investment. The constraint made the company stronger. Here is where constraints as fuel fits in your operating system. It is a ship tool. Its purpose is to move you from ideation to execution. Spark tools generate raw material. Structure tools organize and expand that material. Ship tools get it out the door. Constraints as fuel removes the excuse of insufficient resources and replaces it with creative pressure that accelerates output. Use this method when you are facing limitations that feel like blockers. Budget cuts, timeline compression, missing team members, limited tools. Every limitation is a hidden creative brief. Your job is to decode it. Here is your one-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. Name the project or goal you are working on. Bullet 2. List 3 specific constraints you currently face. Bullet 3. For each constraint, write 1 idea that only works because of that constraint. Bullet 4. Apply the constraint flip to your most frustrating limitation, negative statement, forcing function, advantage. Bullet 5. Identify 1 resource you have been wishing for that you can now stop waiting for. Bullet 6. Write 1 sentence describing what you will ship this week using only what you have. Your mini table has 3 columns. Column 1, constraint. Column 2, leverage idea. Column 3, advantage created. Fill 3 rows. Your decision. Which constraint will you stop resisting and start leveraging today? That is your deliverable. 15 minutes of reframing. 1 project unblocked. You now have 5 methods. First principles to deconstruct. Scamper to transform. Mind mapping to expand. Lateral thinking to escape. Constraints as fuel to accelerate. You can break problems down, multiply ideas, map territories, leap past the obvious, and turn limitations into momentum. But here is what none of these methods do directly. They do not help you import solutions from completely different domains. Sometimes the best answer to your problem has already been solved, just not in your industry. Someone in healthcare, architecture, or professional sports may have cracked the exact challenge you are facing. You just do not know it yet. The next method is called analogical thinking. And in Chapter 6, you are going to learn how a restaurant owner solved his kitchen efficiency problem by studying Formula 1 pit crews, and how you can borrow genius from any field you choose. Cross-domain transfer starts now. Chapter 6, Analogical Thinking, the Borrower. The solution to your problem already exists. It has been tested, refined, and proven. Someone has already done the hard work. There is just one catch. That someone works in a completely different industry, and you have never heard of them. This is the secret elite innovators have known for centuries. The best ideas are rarely invented. They are transferred, borrowed from one domain and applied to another. The resistance you are trying to solve in your sales funnel? A behavioral economist cracked it 15 years ago. The workflow bottleneck slowing your team? A hospital emergency room solved it with a system you could implement tomorrow. The engagement problem in your content strategy? A video game designer published the framework in 2011. The answers exist. You just have not looked in the right places. Analogical thinking is your third spark tool. While first principles deconstructs problems to core truths and lateral thinking escapes obvious patterns, analogical thinking imports proven solutions from distant domains. It is the art of asking, who else has solved this problem, even if they called it something different? Let me put you in the scenario. It is Thursday evening. You manage operations for a fast casual restaurant chain. The dinner rush is a disaster every night. Orders back up. Customers wait too long. Staff collide in the kitchen. Mistakes multiply. You have tried optimizing the menu, adding staff, rearranging stations. Nothing fixes the fundamental chaos. Your regional director wants answers by Monday. You could brainstorm more restaurant solutions. You could study what competitors do. You could hire a consultant who specializes in food service. All of these keep you inside your industry. Inside your industry, everyone faces the same problems and reaches for the same limited set of solutions. Or you could look outside. A restaurant owner in Chicago faced this exact problem in 2014. Instead of studying other restaurants, he studied Formula One pit crews. A pit crew changes 4 tires, refuels, and adjusts aerodynamics in under 2 seconds. 2 seconds. How do they achieve this? Radical specialization. Every person has one job. Positioning is choreographed to the inch. Tools are placed for 0 wasted motion. Communication is compressed to single words. The restaurant owner translated these principles. He assigned each kitchen staff member a single specialized function instead of rotating roles. He redesigned station layouts so movement flowed in one direction. He replaced shouted orders with a visual ticket system that required no verbal communication. The result? Average ticket time dropped by 40%. Customer complaints about wait times dropped by 63%. Staff reported less stress because the chaos was replaced with choreography. The solution came from motorsport, not from restaurants. This is analogical thinking. Borrowing principles from domains that have already solved your problem, even when those domains seem completely unrelated. The quotable rule is this: never solve a problem your industry has not already solved. Solve one that another industry mastered years ago. Here is why this works neurologically. Your brain stores knowledge in categories. Restaurant problems live in one mental folder. Racing problems live in another. These folders rarely communicate. When you brainstorm within your category, you access only the solutions stored there. But when you force a cross-domain comparison, you build new neural bridges. The brain must find commonalities between seemingly unrelated things. This effort produces original combinations that pure within-domain thinking never reaches. Research from Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management studied innovation patterns across 300 breakthrough products. They found that 71% of significant innovations involved knowledge transfer from an outside field. The iPod borrowed interface principles from Bang and Olufsen stereo design. Amazon's recommendation engine adapted collaborative filtering algorithms from academic research on taste prediction. Airbnb's trust system borrowed reputation mechanics from eBay. The pattern is clear. Breakthrough ideas cross boundaries. Now here is the common trap. Most people attempt analogical thinking too literally. They look for domains that seem similar and borrow surface features instead of underlying principles. A restaurant owner might look at another restaurant's kitchen layout and copy it. That is not analogy. That is imitation. Imitation keeps you trapped in the same category of solutions. True analogical transfer requires abstraction. You must identify the underlying principle in the source domain, strip away the specific context, and then reapply that principle to your target domain. The Formula One pit crew is not about cars. It is about choreographed parallel processing under extreme time pressure. That principle applies anywhere speed and coordination matter. The abstraction is the key. Without it, you are just copying. With it, you are innovating. Here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this right now. Write down a problem you are currently facing. Now list 5 completely unrelated domains. Do not think about whether they connect. Just list 5 fields far from your own. If you work in marketing, list surgery, air traffic control, jazz improvisation, beekeeping, and professional poker. For each domain, ask, how would an expert in this field approach my problem? Force an answer, even if it seems absurd. Write one principle or approach from each domain that could apply. You now have 5 external lenses on a problem you have only seen through one lens. At least one will reveal an angle you never considered. Let me give you another real example. A product manager at a software company was struggling with feature prioritization. Every stakeholder wanted their feature built first. Meetings became political battles. Decisions dragged on for weeks. The backlog grew. Morale dropped. She used analogical thinking. She asked, who else deals with limited resources, competing demands, and life or death prioritization? The answer, emergency room triage nurses. She studied how ERs prioritize patients. They use a system that separates urgency from importance. They have clear criteria that remove subjective debate. They reassess continuously as conditions change. They communicate decisions visibly so everyone understands the current state. She adapted these principles. She created a triage framework for feature requests. Each request was scored on impact, urgency, and effort using predefined criteria. Scores were visible to all stakeholders. Prioritization happened weekly based on scores, not debates. Disagreements became discussions about criteria, not politics about preferences. The backlog cleared. Meetings shortened. The framework came from healthcare, not software. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers study their competitors. They read industry publications. They attend conferences in their field. They benchmark against peers. This keeps them current. It also keeps them average. If everyone in your industry reads the same sources, attends the same events, and copies the same best practices, how does anyone differentiate? Elite thinkers study adjacent and distant fields. They read outside their industry deliberately. They ask, what can architecture teach me about user experience? What can behavioral economics teach me about sales? What can military strategy teach me about market entry? A study published in the Harvard Business Review found that executives who regularly consumed content from outside their industry generated 39% more novel strategic options than those who stayed within their domain. Intellectual cross-pollination is a competitive advantage. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers search for solutions. They want the answer handed to them. They look for case studies that match their exact situation. When they cannot find a direct match, they conclude that their problem is unique. Elite thinkers search for principles. They know that solutions are context-specific, but principles transfer. Netflix did not copy Blockbuster. They borrowed the subscription model from magazines and gyms. Apple did not copy Nokia. They borrowed the app ecosystem model from video game consoles. The principle was the innovation, not the specific implementation. Your job is not to find someone who solved your exact problem. Your job is to find someone who solved a structurally similar problem in a different context and extract the transferable principle. Here is a technique to make this systematic. It is called the 5-domain scan. When facing a problem, force yourself to examine 5 different fields. For each field, ask 3 questions. First, what is the equivalent challenge in this domain? Second, how have experts in this domain solved it? Third, what principle from their solution could apply to mine? A UX designer was trying to reduce user drop-off during a complex onboarding flow. She ran the 5-domain scan. Domain 1, video games. Equivalent challenge, teaching complex controls without boring players. Solution, progressive disclosure, revealing complexity only as needed. Applicable principle, do not show all features at once. Domain 2, IKEA furniture assembly. Equivalent challenge, guiding users through complex steps. Solution, visual instructions with minimal text. Applicable principle, show, do not tell. Domain 3, physical therapy. Equivalent challenge, getting patients to complete uncomfortable exercises. Solution, immediate feedback on progress and celebrating small wins. Applicable principle, acknowledge each completed step. She combined all 3 principles. progressive disclosure of features, visual guidance instead of text tutorials, micro celebrations after each onboarding step, drop-off decreased by 51%, free domains, free principles, one integrated solution. Here is where analogical thinking fits in your operating system. It is a Spark tool. Its job is to generate raw creative material by importing solutions from outside your normal mental territory. It does not organize or evaluate. It expands your option set by connecting you to solve problems you did not know existed. Use analogical thinking when you feel trapped inside your industry's conventional solutions. When every idea sounds like a variation of what everyone else does. When you suspect someone somewhere has already cracked this, but you cannot find them by searching within your field. Here is your one-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. State the problem you want to solve through analogy. Bullet 2. List 5 unrelated domains. Bullet 3. For each domain, write the equivalent challenge experts in that field face. Bullet 4. For each domain, write 1 principle from how they solve it. Bullet 5. Circle the 2 most promising principles. Bullet 6. Write 1 sentence describing how you would combine these principles into a solution for your problem. Your mini table has 3 columns. Column 1, domain. Column 2, their challenge. Column 3, their principle. Fill 5 rows. Your decision. Which borrowed principle will you implement this week? That is your deliverable. 15 minutes of cross-domain exploration. 1 solution imported from outside your industry. You now have 6 methods. First, principles to deconstruct. Scamper to transform. Mind mapping to expand. Lateral thinking to escape. Constraints as fuel to accelerate. Analogical thinking to import. You can break problems down, multiply ideas, map territories, leap past the obvious, turn limitations into leverage, and borrow proven solutions from any field. But here is a gap in everything you have learned so far. All 6 methods help you generate ideas. None of them help you evaluate ideas from multiple perspectives before committing. How do you know if your brilliant concept has a fatal flaw? How do you pressure test an idea against emotion, logic, risk, and opportunity simultaneously? The next method gives you 6 different lenses to examine any idea before you invest resources in it. It is called 6 thinking hats. And in Chapter 7, you're going to learn how a product team used it to kill a feature that would have cost them 3 months and $200,000, and how to apply the same rigor to your own decisions. Evaluation begins now. Chapter 7. 6 Thinking Hats. The Evaluator. Picture 2 versions of yourself 6 months from now. In the first version, you are sitting in a conference room explaining why the project failed. The budget is gone. 3 months of your team's work produced nothing usable. Your manager is asking questions you do not have good answers for. Did anyone consider the risks? Did we validate the assumptions? Why did we not see this coming? You knew something fell off early on, but the team was excited. The momentum felt good. Nobody wanted to be the person who killed the energy, so nobody asked the hard questions. And now you are here. In the second version, you are presenting results that exceeded expectations. The project launched on time. Adoption is 40% higher than projected. Your manager asks how you pulled it off. You explained that before committing resources, your team ran the idea through a structured evaluation. You surfaced the risks early. You validated the assumptions before building. You caught a fatal flaw in week 1 that would have wasted everything. The idea that shipped was not the first idea. It was the idea that survived scrutiny. Same starting point, same team, same resources, different process, different outcome. The difference is what happens between generating an idea and committing to it. Most teams skip this step. They fall in love with concepts before stress testing them. They let enthusiasm override analysis. They build first and discover problems later, when fixing them costs 10 times more. This chapter gives you a structured way to evaluate any idea before you invest. It is called 6 Thinking Hats. Let me set the scene. It is Friday at 2 p.m. Your team just finished a brainstorming session. There are 43 ideas on the whiteboard. Energy is high. Everyone is excited about one concept in particular. It feels like a breakthrough. Someone suggests starting development Monday. Heads nod around the room. This is the most dangerous moment in any creative process. The moment when excitement hijacks evaluation. When this feels right, replaces let us make sure. Six Thinking Hats is a structure tool in your creative operating system. But unlike Scamper and mind mapping, which expand and transform ideas, Six Thinking Hats evaluates them. It forces you to examine any concept through six distinct perspectives, one at a time, ensuring nothing gets overlooked because the group got swept up in enthusiasm or bogged down in criticism. The method was developed by Edward de Bono, the same psychologist who created lateral thinking. De Bono observed that most group discussions are chaotic. People argue from different perspectives simultaneously. One person is excited about possibilities while another is focused on risks. One is analyzing data while another is reacting emotionally. The conversation becomes a tangle where nothing gets resolved. Six Thinking Hats solves this by separating thinking modes. Everyone wears the same hat at the same time. When the group is wearing the yellow hat, everyone focuses on benefits. When wearing the black hat, everyone focuses on risks. This parallel thinking prevents conflict and ensures comprehensive coverage. The quotable rule is this: wear one hat at a time. Cover all six before you decide. Here are the six hats and what each one does. The white hat is for facts and data. What do we actually know? What information do we have? What information do we need? No opinions. No interpretations. Just evidence. When your team wears the white hat, you are asking, what is objectively true about this idea? The red hat is for emotions and intuition. How do we feel about this? What is our gut reaction? The red hat gives permission to express feelings without justification. Sometimes intuition signals something that data has not revealed yet. When your team wears the red hat, you are asking, what does our instinct say? The black hat is for risks and caution. What could go wrong? What are the weaknesses? Where might this fail? The black hat is critical thinking without negativity. It is not about killing ideas. It is about identifying threats before they become disasters. When your team wears the black hat, you are asking, what are we not seeing that could hurt us? The yellow hat is for benefits and optimism. What is valuable about this? What are the best case outcomes? Why could this work? The yellow hat balances the black hat. It ensures that criticism does not overwhelm potential. When your team wears the yellow hat, you are asking, what is the upside if this succeeds? The green hat is for creativity and alternatives. What other options exist? How could we modify this? What have we not considered? The green hat generates new possibilities even during evaluation. It keeps the door open for improvements. When your team wears the green hat, you are asking, what else could we do? The blue hat is for process and control. Where are we in the discussion? What hat should we wear next? What conclusions have we reached? The blue hat manages the thinking itself. It is usually worn by the facilitator. When someone wears the blue hat, they are asking, how should we structure this conversation? Now let me show you this method saving real money. A product team at a B2B software company was excited about a new feature. Customer interviews suggested demand. The design was elegant. Engineering estimated 3 months and $200,000 in development cost. Everyone wanted to build it. Before committing, the product lead ran a Six Thinking Hats session. White hat. What data do we actually have? 12 customer interviews mentioned wanting this. But when pressed, only 4 said they would pay more for it. No competitor offered this feature, which could signal opportunity or could signal that the market had already rejected it. Red hat. How do we feel? The team admitted the enthusiasm was partly about the technical challenge. Engineers were excited to build something new. That excitement was valid, but also a bias. Black hat. What could go wrong? Implementation would require changes to the database architecture. If adoption was low, those changes would create maintenance burden with no payoff. The 3-month timeline assumed no complications. Complications always happen. Yellow hat. What is the upside? If this worked, it could differentiate the product in a crowded market. It could justify a price increase. It could attract a new customer segment. Green hat. What alternatives exist? Could they validate demand before building? A fake door test, where users click a button for a feature that does not exist yet, could measure real interest. Cost: 2 days of work instead of 3 months. Blue hat: what have we learned? The idea has potential but carries significant risk. Validation is possible at low cost. The smart move is to test before building. The team ran the fake door test. 4% of users clicked. Industry benchmarks suggested they needed at least 12% to justify development. The feature was killed. 3 months and $200,000 saved. The 6 Thinking Hats session took 90 minutes. This is a valuation that pays for itself. Now here is the common trap. Most people who try 6 Thinking Hats spend too long on the black hat. Criticism is easy. Finding problems feels productive. Teams get stuck listing risks and never move to yellow hat benefits or green hat alternatives. The method works only when all 6 perspectives get equal attention. De Bono recommended time boxing each hat. 2 minutes for red hat feelings. 5 minutes for white hat facts. 5 minutes for black hat risks. 5 minutes for yellow hat benefits. 5 minutes for green hat alternatives. 2 minutes for blue hat summary. Roughly 25 minutes for a complete cycle. The time pressure prevents any single perspective from dominating. Another trap is wearing hats out of sequence in ways that shut down thinking. If you start with black hat criticism, you may kill ideas before exploring their potential. De Bono suggested starting with blue hat to set the agenda, then white hat to establish facts, then red hat to surface gut reactions, before moving to yellow and black for balanced evaluation and green for alternatives. Here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this right now. Think of an idea you are currently considering. Write 1 sentence for each hat. White hat: what is one fact you know for certain about this idea? Red hat: what is your honest gut feeling about it in 1 word? Black hat: what is the single biggest risk? Yellow hat: what is the single biggest potential benefit? Green hat: what is one alternative approach you have not fully explored? Blue hat: what is the one question you most need answered before deciding? 6 sentences. 6 perspectives. You now have a complete preliminary evaluation. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers evaluate ideas based on how they feel about them. If the idea is exciting, they pursue it. If it feels risky, they avoid it. This is not evaluation. This is reaction. Reactions are subject to mood, bias, and groupthink. They miss risks when enthusiasm is high and miss opportunities when fear is high. Elite thinkers separate feeling from analysis. They use structured frameworks to ensure every perspective gets airtime. Research from the Decision Science Institute found that teams using parallel thinking methods like 6 Thinking Hats made decisions 37% faster and reported 42% higher confidence in their conclusions than teams using unstructured discussion. Structure does not slow decisions. It accelerates good ones. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers let the loudest voice dominate. In most meetings, whoever speaks first or speaks most shapes the outcome. Introverts stay silent. Dissenting views get suppressed. The group converges on consensus before exploring the full landscape. Elite thinkers ensure all perspectives surface. 6 Thinking Hats works because everyone wears the same hat simultaneously. When it is black hat time, even the biggest optimist must voice concerns. When it is yellow hat time, even the biggest skeptic must articulate benefits. A study from MIT's Human Dynamics Lab found that teams with more equal participation in discussions outperform teams dominated by 1 or 2 voices, even when those dominant voices belong to the most experienced members. Diversity of input beats expertise of few. Your job is not to reach consensus quickly. Your job is to reach a good decision completely. Here is where 6 Thinking Hats fits in your operating system. It is a structure tool, but it serves a different purpose than Scamper or mind mapping. Those tools expand and transform ideas. 6 Thinking Hats evaluates them. Use it after you have generated options, before you commit resources. It is the bridge between ideation and execution. Here is your 1-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. State the idea you are evaluating. Bullet 2. White hat. List 3 facts you know and 1 fact you need. Bullet 3. Red hat. Write your gut feeling in one sentence. Bullet 4. Black hat. List the top 3 risks. Bullet 5. Yellow hat. List the top 3 benefits. Bullet 6. Green hat. Write one alternative approach worth considering. Your mini table has 2 columns. Column 1. Hat color. Column 2. Key insight. Fill 6 rows, 1 for each hat. Your decision. Based on this evaluation, will you proceed, pivot, or pause? That is your deliverable. 20 minutes of structured evaluation. One decision you can trust. You now have 7 methods. First, principles to deconstruct. Scamper to transform. Mind mapping to expand. Lateral thinking to escape. Constraints as fuel to accelerate. Analogical thinking to import. 6 thinking hats to evaluate. You can break problems down, multiply ideas, map territories, leap sideways, leverage limitations, borrow from other fields, and stress test concepts before committing. But here is a challenge none of these methods address directly. What do you do when you have too many ideas? When brainstorming worked too well, and now you are drowning in options? You need a way to generate volume and then filter to quality. A 2-phase process that first opens wide and then narrows smart. The next method is called diverge then converge. And in Chapter 8, you are going to learn the exact ratio elite creative teams use to balance idea quantity with idea quality, and why most people converge too early. The filter activates now. Chapter 8. Diverge, converge, the filter. Stanford's D.School tracked 212 product teams over 4 years. They wanted to answer a simple question: what separates teams that ship breakthrough products from teams that ship mediocre ones? The researchers measured everything: team size, budget, experience levels, time allocated, meeting frequency. One variable predicted success better than all others combined. It was not talent. It was not resources. It was not even the quality of the initial idea. It was when the team stopped generating options and started selecting. The breakthrough teams spent 60% of their creative time in divergent mode, generating as many ideas as possible without judgment. Then they spent 40% in convergent mode, filtering and selecting. The mediocre teams inverted this ratio. They converged too early. They grabbed the first decent idea and started building. They never discovered the better options hiding just beyond their initial reach. The difference between good and great was not the ideas themselves. It was the process of finding them. This is Chapter 8, and the method you are about to learn will change how you balance quantity and quality forever. Let me put you in the moment. It is Tuesday at 10 a.m. You are facilitating a brainstorming session with your team. The energy is good. Ideas are flowing. Someone throws out a concept, and 3 people immediately start building on it. Yes, and we could add this feature. We should talk to engineering today. I can have a mock-up by Thursday. This is the moment most teams make a critical error. They converge. The idea on the table is good. It might even be great. But it is the 7th idea in a session that could have produced 70. By committing now, the team will never know what they missed. The best idea might have been number 43. It will never exist because the room decided too soon. Diverge then converge is the first select tool in your creative operating system. Select tools help you filter options and choose what to pursue, while Spark tools generate raw material and structure tools organize and expand it. Select tools narrow the field to the best options. This method does both in sequence. First you open wide, then you close smart. The quotable rule is this: quantity first, quality second, never both at once. Here is what happens neurologically when you try to generate and evaluate simultaneously. Your brain cannot do it. Generation requires the prefrontal cortex to relax its filters. Evaluation requires those same filters to engage. When you judge ideas as they emerge, you activate the critical circuits that suppress the creative ones. Every "that won't work" thought kills 3 ideas that never get spoken. The criticism does not improve quality. It reduces quantity, which reduces quality indirectly. Research from the University of California, Berkeley's psychology department measured idea output under 2 conditions. In the first condition, participants were told to brainstorm freely for 15 minutes. In the second condition, Participants were told to brainstorm but only share ideas they thought were good. The free brainstorm group produced 3 times more ideas. But here is what matters. When independent judges rated all ideas for quality, the free brainstorm group also produced more high-quality ideas in absolute numbers. More raw material meant more good material. The implication is clear. Your job during divergence is volume, not value. Value comes later. Let me show you the method in practice. A content strategy team at a media company needed campaign concepts for a product launch. They had done brainstorms before. The typical pattern: 45 minutes of discussion, 8 to 12 ideas on the whiteboard, quick vote. Everyone leaves with the winning concept. This time, they tried something different. Phase 1: diverge. 30 minutes. One rule: no evaluation. Every idea gets written down. No yes, but. No, that's interesting, however. No facial expressions of doubt. Just generation. The facilitator enforced silence after each idea. No immediate reactions allowed. They used a technique called brainwriting. Each person wrote ideas on sticky notes silently for 5 minutes, then passed their notes to the right. The next person read the notes and used them as springboards for new ideas. 5 more minutes. Pass again. After 6 rounds, they had 147 sticky notes on the wall. 147 options instead of 12. Phase 2: converge. 30 minutes. Now evaluation begins. But structured evaluation, not open debate. First, silent voting. Each person got 5 dot stickers to place on their favorite ideas. No discussion. This surfaced the crowd's wisdom without groupthink. After voting, clusters emerged. 23 ideas had multiple votes. The team grouped these into themes. Then they applied criteria: feasibility, originality, alignment with brand, resource requirements. Each cluster was scored. The winning concept was idea number 89. It had not appeared until the 4th brainwriting round. Under the old process, it would never have existed. The campaign launched and outperformed their previous 3 launches combined. Idea 89 won because the team stayed in divergence long enough for it to emerge. Now here is the common trap. Most people converge too early because divergence feels unproductive. You are generating ideas that seem bad. You are writing down concepts you know will not work. Your inner critic screams that this is a waste of time. Every instinct says to stop and focus on the good stuff. This instinct is wrong. The bad ideas are not the point. The bad ideas are the pathway. Creativity research calls this the originality curve. The first ideas in any session are the most obvious, the most common, the most derivative. They are what everyone thinks of. As you push further, the obvious gets exhausted. Your brain must dig deeper. Ideas 30 through 50 are typically where originality spikes. But most people quit before idea 20. A study from the Kellogg School of Management asked participants to generate uses for a common object. They measured originality at different points in the session. Ideas 1 through 10 averaged an originality score of 2.3. Ideas 20 through 30 averaged 3.8. Ideas 40 through 50 averaged 4.6. The best ideas came last. Quitting early means quitting before the good stuff. Your job is to push past the discomfort of bad ideas to reach the territory where good ideas live. Here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this right now. Pick a challenge you are currently working on. Set a timer for 3 minutes. Generate as many ideas as you can. Write them down without stopping. Do not evaluate. Do not edit. Do not pause to consider whether an idea is good. Just generate. Aim for at least 15 ideas in 3 minutes. When the timer stops, count your ideas. Circle the 3 that appeared after idea number 10. These late-stage ideas are statistically more likely to be original. They emerged after your brain exhausted the obvious. Now evaluate only those 3. Which one has the most potential? This micro-exercise compresses diverge then converge into 3 minutes. The principle scales to any time frame. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers treat ideation as a search for the right answer. They scan options looking for the one that clicks. When something feels promising, they stop and commit. This feels efficient. It is actually limiting. The right answer is usually just the first acceptable answer. Acceptable is not optimal. Elite thinkers treat ideation as a numbers game. They know that creative quality is a function of creative quantity. The more options they generate, the more likely one will be exceptional. IDEO, the design firm behind hundreds of breakthrough products, has a famous principle: fail often to succeed sooner. They prototype dozens of concepts knowing most will fail. The failures are not wasted effort. They are the filter that surfaces the winners. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers evaluate while generating. They cannot help it. The inner critic runs constantly. That's stupid. We tried that. That'll never work. Each judgment narrows the possibility space. By the end of the session, they have fewer options than they could have had, and less diversity among those options. Elite thinkers separate the two modes completely. During divergence, the inner critic is not just quieted. It is banned. No evaluation. No filtering. No judgment. Pixar calls their early creative sessions ugly baby meetings. The ideas are supposed to be ugly. Premature polish kills originality. Only after divergence ends does evaluation begin, and then it happens systematically, with criteria and structure. Your job is not to have good ideas during brainstorming. Your job is to have many ideas. Good is determined afterward. Here is a technique to structure your convergence phase. It is called the four-lens filter. After divergence, evaluate your ideas through four sequential lenses. Lens 1, impact. If this idea worked perfectly, how significant would the outcome be? Filter out low-impact ideas regardless of feasibility. Lens 2, feasibility. Given your current resources and constraints, can this idea actually be executed? Filter out ideas that cannot be implemented. Lens 3, originality. Has this been done before? Will this stand out? Filter out derivative ideas that offer no differentiation. Lens 4, speed. How quickly could you test or implement this? Prioritize ideas that can generate learning fast. Apply each lens in sequence. An idea must pass all four to make your final shortlist. This structured approach prevents the loudest voice from dominating and ensures balanced evaluation. Here is where diverge then converge fits in your operating system. It is a select tool. Its job is to help you navigate from many options to the best options. It works in two phases that must stay separate. Diverge first, with volume as the only goal. Converge second, with structured criteria guiding selection. Use this method whenever you need ideas. Product concepts, marketing angles, strategic options, content topics, problem solutions. The subject does not matter. The process does. Here is your one-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. State the challenge you are generating ideas for. Bullet 2. Record your total idea count after divergence. Bullet 3. List your top 10 ideas after initial silent voting or gut selection. Bullet 4. Apply the four-lens filter. Which ideas pass impact? Bullet 5. Of those, which pass feasibility, originality, and speed? Bullet 6. Write your final shortlist of 3 ideas. Your mini table has 5 columns. Column 1, idea. Column 2, impact score, 1 to 5. Column 3, feasibility score, 1 to 5. Column 4, originality score, 1 to 5. Column 5, speed score, 1 to 5. Fill rows for your top 10 ideas. Your decision. Which single idea will you prototype or test first? That is your deliverable. 1 divergence session. 1 structured convergence. 1 prioritized shortlist ready for action. You now have 8 methods. First principles to deconstruct. Scamper to transform. Mind mapping to expand. Lateral thinking to escape. Constraints as fuel to accelerate. Analogical thinking to import. 6 thinking hats to evaluate perspectives. Diverge then converge to filter volume to quality. You can break problems down, multiply ideas, map territories, leap sideways, leverage limitations, borrow from other fields, stress test from 6 angles, and filter many options to the best few. But here is something none of these methods directly address. What happens when you are stuck not because you lack ideas, but because you cannot see past your own assumptions? Every solution you generate sits on top of beliefs you do not even know you hold. Those invisible assumptions constrain your options. Until you expose them, you are optimizing inside a box you cannot see. The next method is called reverse assumptions. And in Chapter 9, you're going to learn how flipping one hidden belief helped a struggling subscription business double their conversion rate in 6 weeks. The invisible becomes visible now. Chapter 9. Reverse Assumptions. The Flipper. 93% of your thinking is invisible to you. This is not a metaphor. Cognitive scientists at the University of Virginia conducted a decade-long study on decision-making and discovered that the vast majority of our reasoning operates on autopilot. We do not choose our assumptions. We inherit them from our industry, from our education, from the way things have always been done. These assumptions feel like facts. They feel like gravity, unchangeable, obvious, true. They are often none of these things. Every problem you have ever tried to solve, you solved on top of assumptions you never questioned. Every idea you have ever generated emerged from a framework of beliefs you did not consciously choose. And here is the consequence. Every solution you rejected because it violated an assumption that may not even be valid. The ideas you cannot see are hiding behind the beliefs you do not know you hold. This is Chapter 9. And the method you are about to learn will make the invisible visible. Let me put you in the scenario. It is a Thursday afternoon strategy meeting. Your subscription business is struggling. Conversion rates from free trial to paid have been stuck at 4% for 8 months. The team has tried everything. Better onboarding, clearer pricing, feature improvements. Nothing moves the number. The CEO is losing patience. The board meeting is in 3 weeks. Everyone in the room is smart. Everyone has ideas. But every idea sounds like a variation of something already attempted. You are not stuck because you lack creativity. You are stuck because every person in that room shares the same invisible assumptions about how subscription businesses work. Reverse assumptions is your second select tool. While diverge then converge helps you filter many options to the best few. Reverse assumptions helps you discover options that do not yet exist because hidden beliefs are blocking them. It exposes the invisible walls around your thinking and asks what happens when you knock them down. The quotable rule is this: the assumption you never question is the assumption that is limiting you most. Here is how the method works. You identify the core assumptions underlying your current approach. You write them down explicitly. Then you reverse each one and explore what solutions become possible under the reversed assumption. The reversal is not about finding the opposite truth. It is about escaping the gravitational pull of the original belief long enough to see new territory. Let me show you this method transforming a real business. The subscription company from our scenario ran a reverse assumption session. The facilitator asked a simple question: what are we assuming about how people convert from free to paid? The team listed their assumptions. Assumption 1. Users need to experience value during the trial before they will pay. Assumption 2. A longer trial gives users more time to see value. Assumption 3. Users who do not convert found the product lacking. Assumption 4. Our job during the trial is to demonstrate features. Assumption 5. Price is revealed after users experience the product. 5 assumptions. All reasonable. All industry standard. All potentially wrong. The facilitator picked assumption 2. A longer trial gives users more time to see value. The current trial was 14 days. The reversal: what if a shorter trial increased conversions? This felt counterintuitive. The team's initial reaction was resistance. People need time. Rushing them will backfire. But they explored it anyway. Under a shorter trial, what changes? Urgency increases. Procrastination decreases. Users cannot delay engagement because the deadline is immediate. The trial becomes an event, not a background process. They tested it. They reduced the trial from 14 days to 3 days. Conversion rate doubled. Went from 4% to 8.3%. The 14-day trial was not a fact. It was an assumption inherited from competitors. Nobody had questioned it. The moment they reversed it, a solution appeared that had been invisible for 8 months. This is the power of reverse assumptions. The answer was not hiding. The assumption was hiding it. Now here is the common trap. Most people who try this method reverse trivial assumptions. They flip something small and wonder why the method did not produce breakthrough thinking. The power is in reversing foundational assumptions, the beliefs so deeply embedded that they feel like laws of nature. How do you find foundational assumptions? Ask these questions. What would everyone in my industry agree is true? What have we never tried because it seems obviously wrong? What would get me laughed out of a meeting if I suggested it? The answers point to your deepest assumptions. Those are the ones worth reversing. Another trap is dismissing reversals too quickly. When you flip an assumption, the result often sounds absurd. A 3-day trial instead of 14 seems reckless. Charging before the trial seems backward. Removing the most popular feature seems suicidal. The absurdity is the signal that you have hit a real assumption. Sit with the reversal. Explore its implications before judging it. Here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this right now. Think of a problem or project you are currently working on. Write down 5 statements that complete this sentence. In this situation, we assume that. Do not filter. Write the first 5 assumptions that come to mind. They might be about your customers, your process, your resources, your timeline, or your industry. Now pick the assumption that feels most obviously true, the one that everyone would agree with. Reverse it. Write the opposite statement. Finally, generate 3 ideas that would only make sense if the reversed assumption were true. These ideas were previously invisible to you. The assumption was blocking them. 5 assumptions. 1 reversal. 3 new ideas. 3 minutes. Let me give you another example of this method in action. A UX design team was redesigning an e-commerce checkout flow. Their goal was to reduce cart abandonment. They had already optimized button colors, simplified forms, and added trust badges. The abandonment rate remained stubbornly high at 68%. They ran reverse assumptions. The assumptions they listed: users want checkout to be fast. Users want fewer steps. Users abandon because of friction. Users need reassurance about security. Distraction causes abandonment. The facilitator reversed assumption 3. Users abandon because of friction. The reversal: users abandon despite low friction. What if friction is not the problem? This opened a new question. If not friction, then what? They dug into session recordings. They noticed something they had overlooked. Many users who abandoned had fully completed the form. They reached the final confirmation page and then left. Friction was not stopping them. Something else was. Further investigation revealed the issue. Users were experiencing last-moment doubt about whether they were making the right purchase. Not checkout doubt, product doubt. The confirmation page gave them a pause where uncertainty flooded in. The solution was not less friction. It was more reassurance at the final step. They added a "Why Customers Love This" section on the confirmation page with 3 short testimonials specific to the product in the cart. Abandonment dropped to 51%. 17 percentage points from one change that only became visible when they reversed their core assumption about why people leave. The problem was not what they thought it was. The assumption prevented them from seeing the real problem. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers optimize within assumptions. They accept the boundaries of their situation as fixed and work to perform better inside those boundaries. This produces incremental improvement. It never produces transformation. You cannot optimize your way to a breakthrough if the breakthrough requires violating an assumption you refuse to question. Elite thinkers optimize assumptions themselves. Before improving how they do something, they ask whether they should be doing it at all. Before making a process faster, they ask whether the process should exist. Amazon's leadership principle, "are right a lot," is often misunderstood. It does not mean Amazon leaders are always correct. It means they are willing to change their minds when assumptions prove wrong. Jeff Bezos has said that people who are right a lot change their mind a lot. Assumption flexibility is the skill. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers defend their beliefs. When an assumption is challenged, they feel threatened. They generate reasons why the assumption must be correct. They filter evidence to support existing beliefs. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. It protects the ego. It also protects bad assumptions from correction. Elite thinkers hunt their beliefs. They actively look for assumptions that might be wrong. They reward team members who challenge established thinking. Ray Dalio built Bridgewater into the world's largest hedge fund partly by institutionalizing what he calls radical transparency, where every assumption is open to challenge regardless of who holds it. Research from the Wharton School found that teams with explicit norms around assumption challenging outperform teams without such norms by 26% on complex problem-solving tasks. Challenging assumptions is not disrespectful. It is essential. Your job is not to defend what you believe. Your job is to discover what is true. Here is a technique to make reverse assumptions systematic. It is called the assumption audit. Before starting any major project, list 10 assumptions underlying your approach. For each assumption, answer 3 questions. First, where did this assumption come from? Did you test it, or did you inherit it? Second, what would have to be true for this assumption to be wrong? Third, what is the cost if this assumption is wrong and you act on it anyway? Any assumption that is inherited, easily falsifiable, and high cost if wrong should be tested before you proceed. The assumption audit takes 30 minutes. It can save months of wasted effort. Here is where reverse assumptions fits in your operating system. It is a select tool, but unlike diverge then converge, which filters existing options, reverse assumptions creates new options by removing invisible constraints. Use it when you feel stuck in a loop of similar ideas. When every solution feels like a variation of the same approach, that is often a sign that an unexamined assumption is narrowing your view. Here is your one-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. State the problem or project you want to examine. Bullet 2. List 5 core assumptions underlying your current approach. Bullet 3. Identify which assumption feels most universally accepted. Bullet 4. Write the reversal of that assumption. Bullet 5. Generate 3 ideas that would only work if the reversal were true. Bullet 6. Select 1 reversed idea worth testing or exploring further. Your mini table has 4 columns. Column 1, assumption. Column 2, source, tested or inherited. Column 3, what would prove it wrong? Column 4, cost if wrong. Fill 5 rows. Your decision, which assumption will you test or challenge this week? That is your deliverable. 30 minutes of assumption auditing. 1 invisible wall identified. New territory revealed. You now have 9 methods. First principles to deconstruct. Scamper to transform. Mind mapping to expand. Lateral thinking to escape. Constraints as fuel to accelerate. Analogical thinking to import. 6 thinking hats to evaluate perspectives. Diverge then converge to filter volume. Reverse assumptions to expose hidden beliefs. You can break problems down, multiply ideas, map territories, leap sideways, leverage limitations, borrow solutions, stress test from 6 angles, filter to quality, and see through invisible walls. One method remains, and it addresses the single biggest killer of creative work. Overthinking. You have ideas. You have evaluated them. You have filtered them. You have challenged your assumptions. And still, you have not shipped. The concept sits in your head, on your whiteboard, in your document, getting refined endlessly while nothing enters the real world. The final method breaks this pattern. It forces action before you feel ready. It replaces thinking with testing. It is called rapid prototyping. And in Chapter 10, you're going to learn why a 30-minute prototype beats a 30-day plan, and how to build your minimum testable idea before this audiobook ends. Thinking stops. Shipping starts. Now. Chapter 10, Rapid Prototyping. The closer. The idea is ready. You know it is good. You have deconstructed the problem to its core truths. You have transformed the concept through multiple lenses. You have mapped the territory, escaped obvious patterns, borrowed from other fields, evaluated from 6 perspectives, filtered to the best options, and challenged your hidden assumptions. And still, it sits there, unbuilt, untested, unlaunched. You are waiting for more data, for perfect conditions, for certainty that it will work, for the fear to subside, for someone to give you permission. This is where most creative work dies. Not from bad ideas, from good ideas that never left the whiteboard. A study from the University of Pennsylvania tracked entrepreneurs over 5 years. They measured 2 variables: time spent planning before launch, and eventual success. The correlation most people expect is that more planning equals better outcomes. The data showed the opposite. Entrepreneurs who launched within 30 days of initial concept outperformed those who planned for 6 months or longer. The fast launchers learned from real feedback, while the planners were still refining hypotheticals. The plan was not the problem. The planning was. It became a hiding place from the risk of actually shipping. This is Chapter 10, the final method, the one that closes the gap between thinking and doing. Let me put you in the moment. It is Friday at 4 p.m. You have been developing a proposal for 3 weeks. The research is thorough. The deck is polished. The strategy is sound. Your manager asked for an update. You said you needed more time. Next week, more refinement, more validation, more confidence. But here is the truth you have not admitted. The proposal was ready 2 weeks ago. What you are doing now is not improving it. You are protecting yourself. Every additional revision is a delay disguised as diligence. You are not making the idea better. You are avoiding the moment of judgment. This pattern has a name. It is called productive procrastination. You feel busy. You feel responsible. You are doing neither. Rapid prototyping breaks this pattern. Rapid prototyping is the second ship tool in your creative operating system. While constraints as fuel turns limitations into creative accelerants, rapid prototyping turns ideas into testable artifacts before your inner perfectionist can stop you. It is not about building the final product. It is about building the minimum version that generates real feedback. The quotable rule is this: 30 minutes of building beats 30 days of planning. Here is what rapid prototyping actually means. You take your idea and create a tangible version of it in the shortest time possible. Not a complete version, not a polished version. A version that is real enough to test, learn from, and iterate. For a product feature, a prototype might be a clickable mock-up built in 30 minutes. For a marketing campaign, it might be a single ad shown to 50 people. For a content strategy, it might be one post published before the full calendar is planned. For a business model, it might be a landing page describing an offer that does not fully exist yet. The prototype is not the point. The learning is the point. Let me show you this method in action. A product team at a financial services company had an idea for a new budgeting feature. Traditional process would be write requirements, design screens, build backend, test internally, launch in 4 months. They chose rapid prototyping instead. Day 1. The designer created a paper sketch of the feature flow. Not software. Paper. They showed it to 8 customers in 30-minute video calls, walking them through the sketches and asking for reactions. Day 2. Based on feedback, they revised the concept significantly. 2 screens were eliminated. 1 new screen was added. The core value proposition shifted. Day 3. The designer built a clickable prototype using a no-code tool. Total build time, 4 hours. They tested with 12 more customers. Day 4. Critical insight emerged. Customers loved the concept, but wanted it connected to their existing accounts, not as a standalone tool. This integration requirement would triple development time. Better to know now than after 4 months of building. Week 2. They launched a stripped-down version of the feature to 500 beta users. Not perfect, not complete, enough to generate real usage data. Total time from idea to real-world testing, 9 days. Total cost, minimal. What they learned in those 9 days would have taken 4 months to discover under the traditional process. And if the idea had failed, they would have failed fast and cheap instead of slow and expensive. This is the power of prototyping. You stop imagining how users will respond and start observing how they actually respond. Now here is the common trap. Most people confuse prototyping with building. They think a prototype needs to work fully. It does not. A prototype needs to communicate the idea well enough to generate feedback. Paper sketches work. Slide decks work. Fake landing pages work. Video walkthroughs work. Anything that makes the idea tangible enough to test works. IDEO's founder David Kelly has a phrase: if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. The prototype ends debate. Instead of arguing about what might happen, you test and see what actually happens. Another trap is waiting until the prototype is good. It should not be good. It should be fast. Jeff Bezos talks about two-way door decisions versus one-way door decisions. One-way doors are irreversible and deserve careful deliberation. Two-way doors can be reversed if they do not work. Most prototypes are two-way doors. If the test fails, you adjust and try again. But most people treat every decision like a one-way door and over-deliberate everything. Here is your 3-minute exercise. Do this before this audiobook ends. Think of an idea you have been sitting on, something you have been planning, refining, or waiting to execute. Now answer this question. What is the smallest version of this idea I could build or test in 30 minutes? Not the full version, not the good version, the minimum testable version. Write down exactly what you will build. A one-page outline, a rough sketch, a short video, a single email, a social media post, a conversation with one potential customer. Now commit to a deadline, not next week, today, or tomorrow morning at the latest. Write down the exact time you will have this prototype completed. That is rapid prototyping. 30-minute commitment. Real artifact. Real deadline. No more hiding and planning. Let me give you the elite versus average contrast. Average thinkers perfect before they ship. They want the idea fully formed, beautifully executed, ready for judgment. They delay launch until they feel confident. Confidence never arrives fully, so neither does the product. Meanwhile, the market moves, competitors ship, and the window closes. Elite thinkers ship before they perfect. Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, said, "If you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you launch too late." The first version is supposed to be rough. That roughness generates feedback. Feedback generates improvement. Improvement happens faster in the real world than in your imagination. A study from Harvard Business School found that startups who launched minimum viable products within 3 months raised more funding and achieved higher valuations than those who delayed for full product builds. Speed to learning beats speed to perfection. Here is another contrast. Average thinkers ask, what if it fails? They imagine negative outcomes and let fear delay action. The failure they fear is usually social. Judgment, embarrassment, looking foolish. Elite thinkers ask, what will I learn if it fails? Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Every prototype that does not work teaches you something a successful prototype cannot. Thomas Edison's famous line about light bulb experiments applies here. He did not fail 1,000 times. He discovered 1,000 ways that did not work, each one narrowing the path to the one that did. The prototype that fails fast saves you from the plan that fails slow. Your job is not to avoid failure. Your job is to accelerate learning. Now let me give you something that ties this entire audiobook together. You have learned 10 methods. Each one serves a specific purpose in your creative operating system. Let me show you how to combine them. Spark tools generate raw creative material. First principles deconstructs to core truths. Lateral thinking escapes obvious patterns. Analogical thinking imports solutions from other domains. Use Spark tools when you need new ideas, when you are stuck in loops, when everything feels derivative. Structure tools organize and expand your thinking. Scamper transforms ideas through 7 lenses. Mind mapping branches one concept into many. 6 thinking hats evaluates from multiple perspectives. Use structure tools when you have raw material and need to develop it systematically. Select tools filter options and choose direction. Diverge then converge balances quantity with quality. Reverse assumptions exposes hidden constraints. Use select tools when you have many options and need to narrow to the best. Ship tools move ideas into the real world. Constraints as fuel turns limitations into leverage. Rapid prototyping replaces planning with testing. Use ship tools when you need to stop thinking and start doing. The full creative process moves through all 4 phases. Spark to generate, structure to develop, select to filter, ship to execute. You do not always need all 10 methods, but knowing which phase you are in tells you which tools to reach for. Here are 3 powerful method combinations to try. Combination 1. First principles plus scamper. Deconstruct a problem to its core truths, then transform each truth through 7 lenses. This produces solutions that are both fundamental and varied. Combination 2. Mind mapping plus reverse assumptions. Map the full territory of a concept, then identify assumptions underlying each branch. Reverse the most limiting assumptions. This expands your map into territory you could not see before. Combination 3. Analogical thinking plus rapid prototyping. Import a principle from another domain, then prototype it immediately in your context. Test the borrowed idea before you invest in developing it fully. These combinations multiply the power of individual methods. Here is your one-page output for this chapter. 6 bullets. 1 mini table. 1 decision. Bullet 1. Name the idea you will prototype. Bullet 2. Define the minimum testable version you can build in 30 minutes. Bullet 3. Identify what specific question this prototype will answer. Bullet 4. List the 3 people who will see or test your prototype. Bullet 5. Set your completion deadline in hours, not days. Bullet 6. Define what feedback would tell you to proceed, pivot, or stop. Your mini table has 3 columns. Column 1. Phase, spark, structure, select, or ship. Column 2. Method you will use for that phase. Column 3. Output from that method. Fill 4 rows, 1 for each phase of your next creative project. Your decision: what will you prototype before this day ends? That is your final deliverable. 30 minutes. 1 prototype. Real learning. You have now completed all 10 methods. You have a full creative operating system. Spark, structure, select, ship. But the system means nothing if it stays in your head. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not more information. It is action. You do not need another book. You do not need another course. You do not need permission. You need to build something, test something, ship something. The people you admire, the ones who seem to generate ideas effortlessly, who ship constantly, who always have something new, they are not more talented than you. They have a system. And now you have one too. The old pattern was waiting. Waiting for inspiration. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for confidence. Waiting for someone to tell you your idea is good enough. That pattern ends now. The new pattern is generating. Generating ideas on demand. Generating options when others see none. Generating momentum when others feel stuck. Generating output when others are still planning. You do not wait for inspiration. You generate ideas with a system. That is who you are now. Use it. You made it. 2 hours ago you hit play, hoping this audiobook would unlock better ideas. You're finishing with something more valuable. A complete creative operating system. A new way to see problems, possibilities, and yourself. Here's what you now have. First principles thinking. While others optimize inside broken systems, you strip everything down to what is undeniably true and rebuild from the ground up. Scamper. When you need fast variations, you run your idea through 7 lenses: substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, reverse. Mind mapping. When you need to explore a concept, you branch outward instead of listing downward. Your thinking becomes visible, gaps reveal themselves, and connections appear. Lateral thinking. When logic locks you into predictable routes, you move sideways. You invert the problem and escape the obvious. Constraints as fuel. When others complain about limits, you leverage them. Less budget demands more creativity. Tighter deadlines demand sharper focus. Analogical thinking. When your industry runs out of answers, you import them from elsewhere: Formula One, emergency rooms, video games, any field that has solved your problem under a different name. 6 thinking hats. When it's time to evaluate, you rotate through 6 angles: facts, feelings, risks, benefits, alternatives, process, so nothing gets missed. Diverge, then converge. First you generate without judgment, then you filter with criteria. The strongest ideas arrive late, and you stay long enough to reach them. Reverse assumptions. When invisible beliefs shrink your options, you flip what everyone accepts and uncover solutions hiding in plain sight. Rapid prototyping. When overthinking threatens momentum, you build before you feel ready. 30 minutes of testing beats 30 days of planning. This is your system now. Spark to generate, structure to develop, select to filter, ship to execute. You don't need all 10 methods for every problem, just the right tool for the phase you're in. The question is no longer whether you can generate ideas. You can. The real question is whether you will use what you've gained. Most people finish a book like this, feel inspired for a day, then slip back into old patterns. Don't be most people. Pick one method and use it today, then tomorrow, until it becomes automatic. The system works only if you work the system. You don't wait for inspiration. You generate.